Welcome back to our episodes on It Looks Like What? So we're going to kind of tag team. Our last little mini episode was on parking lots. And today we are going to talk about, anyone want to guess? We are going to talk about what driving a car, traffic, reading all those road signs is actually like.
Welcome to the CRAB podcast. Here at Children Raised Around the Blind, we have two goals. Our first goal is to help those living with the blind to understand them better and to help children through the difficulties that come from living with a blind parent. Secondly, we want to spread awareness of the blind community. Here on the podcast, we will share the things that blind people can do and ways the sighted world can include them in everyday life. Join us twice a month to learn about the visually impaired community.
Okay, so let's hit our topic of driving traffic. I'm going to say traffic because this is my city. Welcome to Atlanta. If I zoom out, the picture gets a little bit clearer, but yeah, so here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lanes of traffic. Promise you, not everything in Atlanta is 7, 8, 9 lanes. We do have some roadways that are only 4 or 5. But welcome to the big city. This is a concept for my mom that was really hard. Like she knew people talked about all the lanes and all the traffic. But usually she's, a passenger in the car and people just do their thing. Well, when I was 14, my mom started looking into being able to get me my learner's permit early because we could get it at 14 in the state of Georgia. I wasn't ready. So my mom waited till I was 15 to get my license. Excuse me, my learner's permit. And then she read the whole manual with me so I could pass the test and learned way more about roadways than I could tell you. Like still very confused for her. But something she still says is, how do you take it all in? Because for somebody who doesn't see anything, or even, if you're reading a book or listening to a show, um, there's not multiple things usually going on at the same time. There may be a dialogue or, something in the background while this person's talking, but the amount of sensory overload from driving was a lot for her. So one of the ways for her to trust me as a new driver, driving my siblings around, was to read the signs to her. She wanted to make sure I was paying attention and I wasn't falling asleep. But then it got to be a lot. So here we are. We are driving in downtown Atlanta. I'm going to describe the scenario of the picture. So there are 7 lanes of traffic. We are on 7585. We are heading north. We are right at the bottom, or we're in almost the middle of it, downtown Atlanta, heading north. And we're going to pretend that we are in the 4th lane from the left. Left lane is an HOV lane, which is 2 passengers or more. And then the far lane on the right is an exit only lane. And then you're coming up into the intersection of I-20, which runs almost through the entire heart of Atlanta. And then 7585 through the middle, and then they Y off. 75 goes north and west. 85 goes a little bit more east into South Carolina. So here we are at this giant intersection area. And we're going to have to figure out, what do we do? Where do we go? There's all the car noise around us. There's probably an ambulance or siren around. And my mom's like, well, what do the signs say? We can have a GPS going off and telling us, hey, you need to stay in the 3 left lanes, as it always does. The 3 left lanes stay on 7585 north to Chattanooga, Greenville. And she's like, okay, so what are you passing? So I would read the exit signs. I would tell her what lane I'm in. I would tell her the speed limit signs, the mile marker signs, all of these things that are all around us. You can see all of those in the picture here. But that's a lot. And how do you how do you watch the car in front of you, and how do you watch your mirrors on the side with the cars around you, and how do you watch the road signs, and how do you stay in your lane between those white lines? All of those questions that for someone who's never seen, um, or even if they've seen some, not to the degree, how do you do that? How do you take all of that information in, process it in a split second, and know what to do? One of the things my mom still jokes about and loves about my driving is I will tell her what we're passing, and I will usually try to prepare her. So if somebody in front of me slams on their brakes, I'm like, brakes. If I'm going to swerve and I have enough time, I can say swerve or carpet in the road, tree down, some sort of way for her not to panic because I'm turning sharply, or whoops, I forgot, as I make a really tight turn that I know I should have slowed down for and didn't. Makes her a little less panicky. Now, am I gonna say every blind person is scared in the vehicle? Probably not. Um, but how many of them have their 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid driving them everywhere? Um, of my siblings, I am the only one who consistently tells her all the things. Like she'll hear the blinker on, so she knows that, to be prepared to turn. We do a lot of the Atlanta driving, and so a lot of the traffic and the things, and explaining why we're moving over or merging, or, oh man, and she's like, oh man, what? Oh, there's road work and three left lanes are now closed up ahead in 2 miles, and we should migrate to the right. So, those types of things that are visual. This picture is very scary for those of you who live in smaller towns, don't like traffic. It's probably stressing you out just having it on the screen. But as a blind or visually impaired person, it's even more so, because how do you watch all of that? And I would tell my mom, well, I can tell you where the vehicles are. I'm paying attention. I'm checking the side mirrors. I'm checking my rear view mirror. I'm checking the scape in front of me. But it's something so visual that sometimes we forget, and sometimes we take away how hard it is, or sometimes we make it like, for me, I love traffic. So I think traffic's a cool thing some days. As long as I'm not running late, if I've left enough time, I don't mind the traffic because I get to people watch and I get to look down the side of the road. Um, Not everybody has that. And so I just really almost challenge you. How would you explain traffic? How would you explain road patterns? We lived in a small town from my senior year, junior year, senior year, his senior year of high school, until my mom sold her house in 2019. And it was 25 miles per hour at the stoplight in town. And then you got a certain perimeter from town. I think it was like a mile or so out of town from that center. It was 35, and then it was 45, and then it's 55 on the main roads. And still scare her. She's like, are you going too fast? It's like she knew, even though she didn't know the road, she knew like you shouldn't be going that fast. You could sense it. And things like that. So yeah, I mean, if it's somebody who's lost their vision, a lot of them know how long it takes to get from point A to point B. I have one um person who had lost her vision later in life, and I used to drive her different places. We'd go to the grocery store, or I took her home from work. We'd have to go through 75, 85 from downtown, but be going south with the traffic, and then we'd pull off on the exit near her house, and she'd be letting me know like a back way to go, or maybe we needed to stop and grab something real quick. And she could tell, she knew how many lights, she could count the lights. And then she could also tell, just based on the flow of traffic, when we're time-wise getting close to where we should be turning and what the road name should be. And so some people are really good at that too. And, they can visualize that in their brain. And I think it's kind of cool. So traffic patterns, driving, what would you add? What are some things that you would let them know about?